thank you. Welcome to today's panel. We're going to talk about the debut of a new comic book, The Liberty Brigade. I'll let the panelists introduce themselves. I'm the writer. I'm Michael Finn, so it's my first time writing a comic book, and I thought that I would need a lot of help, so I brought along a lot of my friends to help make my work look a little bit better. So I'll let them introduce themselves, talk about what they're doing, and we'll talk all about the book.
Oh, me first, okay.
Hello, I'm Mark Buckingham. I'm sort of better known for Fables, and I'm currently doing new Miracle Man stories with Neil Gaiman, and I had the pleasure of contributing a one-page strip with a couple of the characters for Liberty Brigade. Should I say which ones? Is that okay?
Bill of Rights.
Bill of Rights and National Anthem.
I'm Barry Kitson. I've drawn pretty much everything at the moment. I'm drawing Doctor Strange for Marvel Comics, and I'm penciling about half of the Liberty Brigade.
Yeah. I'm Mark Waid. I've written everything else that there is drawn. I am editing Liberty Brigade.
I'm Chen. I've been working for about a quarter century in comics, probably most known for Iron Man, did some Marvel, other stuff like X-Men, and I did the cover to Liberty Brigade.
I'm Marty Baumann. I work for Pixar, and I did the logos and some fake ads.
Hey, so thank you, Marty. So I love the golden age of comics, the 1940s and the 1950s, and I wanted to bring back a lot of these characters from the 40s and 50s that nobody has ever heard of, that people have forgotten, that were famous, and people really knew them. There was a villain called the Clown, and he appeared in dozens of issues, always fighting heroes named Magno and Davy, and today no one knows him, but he was a precursor to the Joker. So I wanted to bring back a lot of these characters, and I wanted to do a tale set in World War II, and I talk about the characters, but I wanted really fun people that looked visually interesting, that may not have had a great backstory. So if you look at the Liberty Brigade, if you look on there, the upper left is a character called the Blue Flame, and he was around way before Johnny Storm and the Human Torch. He can obviously burst into flame. We have Catman and Kitten. Down at the bottom left, we have a character, Mr. Freedom, who's a new character. You'll have to read the book a little bit to find out why he's a Golden Ager. And then we have National Anthem at the top, a new character. The Mad Hatter, he was a lawyer by day and fought crime at night. Everyone told me that character's unrealistic. A lawyer by day would be stuck doing legal work at night. The Green Turtle, who was the first Chinese superhero. Back in the 40s, they weren't so excited about Chinese superheroes, so the Green Turtle never got to show his face in the interior. He walked around with his arm in front of it, or blocked by a tree, or all kinds of other things. And then last we have Johnny Revel. He was a patriot hero of the South. So we wanted to bring back all these characters, make them visually exciting, and I want people to get to talk about what they thought of it, what Mark and the others thought, but I want to tell you one little secret on this cover, in this zero issue that's for sale here. All of the villains in this book are from the 1940s. They appeared only on a cover of a comic. They never showed up in the interior, and they never had a name. So I gave them a name, and I put them in print, and Mark Waid helped ensure that I had some decent dialogue. Barry brought them to life on this cover. Mark and Sean gave me encouragement the whole time, and one of the great things, why Marty's up here, not just logos, I wanted this book to have cool retro ads, so when you turn it over, they look like the 1940s, they look really awesome, so I don't know if the rest of you want to chip in and talk about what you thought as we were talking about the script and characters. Anybody else?
Well, I'm just glad it's happening, because I remember your enthusiasm for this concept in the early days and your doubts about your ability to be actually able to bring these things to light. And I think we all just thought, but if the ideas are already there in your head, it needs to happen. You know, these things tend to sort of write themselves if you allow the adrenaline to just sort of carry you along and get into it. And you'll never become a writer thinking about becoming a writer. You just need to write.
Yeah.
And that's what you did, and you're doing an amazing job.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's a passion project for Mike is really what made it appealing, I think, to all of us. I mean, no one's career goal is to make the Mad Hatter comics. But the cool thing about that is that you look at the roster of characters and you go, oh, actually that guy kind of is interesting, or there's room to make this guy who was kind of a blank slate from the 40s kind of interesting. And so that's what was appealing to me. I mean, he picked me really, he says, because I'm a good editor, he says because I can help him with the story, but the reality is he picked me because I'm the only guy in the world who can match him character for character. The flaming eye, yeah, I know that guy. So.
I take exception to that. I know some of these characters too. I had a Green Turtle comic once.
I will throw down with you anytime, anywhere.
Okay, do it right now. Come on. Let's run on the table.
So that was, just by show of hands, how many of you actually know any of the characters of the 40s? Anybody following? Oh, great, excellent. So,
how old are you? Jesus.
Superman and Batman don't count.
Yeah, right. So look, we really wanted something to be fun. I wanted it to be something that would be accessible to people. I looked for costumes that were interesting. I looked for characters and villains that would be interesting. I really wanted people like Sean and Barry and Mark to help me. And if you buy the book, the last page is a black and white preview. What we did to make it easy for people is we have one-page origins of all the characters. You can buy the book, it's downstairs. But there's one-page origins that go over who they were and why they were there. And we got great people. We got Mark did one. Mark Buckingham, not Mark Waid, drawing that page. We got George Perez, we got Alan Davis. Alan inked himself for the first time in 20 years. I have to tell you, they've overestimated my skills as a writer. For those who saw the plot, I think I'm on plot number version 20, but Barry helped me many times, Mark helped me, Mark Waid helped me. At one point, Jim Steranko read the plot, and his comments to me were, "This is not a story, this is a parade." So I thought I would have to add a bit more characterization.
Let me ask you something. So you're new at this. What are the challenges that you've been reading comics all your life, you wanted to get into this. What were your biggest challenges from the start?
Well, I think one challenge is when to stop reading the comics. And what I mean by that is, I kept reading hundreds of Golden Age comics and then reading more and more and more till I had a list of villains and heroes that I wanted to do. I think another one, it took me a while, and it really does happen, is how do you get into the character's head? Once I figured out what each character was going to be about, and that was aided by talking to people and looking at the visuals. When Barry and Sean brought someone to life, I thought, okay, this is what I think they're about.
Yeah, good. So how did you go about picking the artists?
Well, I started with people I knew that might be able to help. In all honesty, one of the artists I wanted from the start for the book isn't here today. I wanted Ron Frenz. I thought he had a great, clean line. I thought some of the characters, when we were creating a character, the Bill of Rights, who walks around wearing the Bill of Rights on his shirt and looks like a Revolutionary War hero, I created him using Photoshop. And I kept using Ron Frenz versions of the character. And I think at one point Mark Waid said to me, this character looks a lot like Ron Frenz's character. So I think I wanted Ron. When I talked to Barry, who's a very good friend, I never thought his schedule would open up. And I was beyond thrilled when Barry said he could do it. And that's when the graphic novel went from 40 to 80 pages, as I started adding new stories and new adventures. And then for the one-page origins, I really thought how wonderful it would be to have some different styles, to have people whose work has meant so much to me, such as Mark, to have somebody like Marty, who I teasingly refer to as the Great One, who's got a great book called Toy Box Time Machine about all kinds of fake toys, and you ought to go get it. But when I thought about having him do retro ads, and having these 1940-style ads, we have a group in the book called the Women of America, the WOA, and he created a great World War II version, kind of a logo, and we have all these female characters from World War II, including one called War Nurse. So warders went around, instead of healing people, punching them and attacking them. But I thought that was just a great character.
I would like to see your certification, ma'am.
Also in the book are my two favorite World War II characters of all time. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Airmail and his sidekick Stampy. So Airmail and Stampy are there, and we have a character named the Battling Hobo. The Battling Hobo is named after a Marvel Comics character. We wanted to use the Marvel Comics character, but Marvel still has him under copyright, so...
Because you never know when you're going to go publish a Battling Hobo comic.
So Marvel's character is the Fighting Hobo. So we are going to change our name because we did not want Marvel to tell us that they hired Mark Waid, Barry Kitson, Mark Buckingham, and Chen to do a Fighting Hobo miniseries.
I actually read it, by the way, just on the name alone.
Man, the life dream shattered. Well, that's cool. So now, look, I got into the Golden Age characters when I was a kid, I think from reading Jim Steranko's books. Jim Steranko is an artist of the 70s, one of the most influential artists ever to do comics. And in the early 70s, he wrote these two giant tabloid-sized histories of comics. Anybody know or have these? And I absorbed them. I read them over and over again, and I was so fascinated. He would mention all of these Golden Age characters and would cover reproductions and stuff. That was what made me curious about the Airmail and Stampies of the world. You?
I thought they were just such bizarre, weird characters. How could we come up with something for them? So I'll reveal a little something. In the graphic novel, Airmail and Stampy are always seen at the White House protecting the president, more so that the Axis think the president has these superpowers, but we decided in our graphic novel they have no superpowers. They're just two people who wear a costume, because I thought the name Airmail and Stampy was really ridiculous and wanted to figure out how to do something with them. But they had an interesting little visual look, and we wanted to use them. I wanted characters. I wanted some that were around, Catman and Kitten. For those who read their Golden Age adventures, they were quite famous. Kitten, actually, in the comic, if you talk to comic folks, inexplicably aged from an 11-year-old to about an 18-year-old, with no explanation given. That's just how the artists rolled in those days. One day she was 4 feet tall, and the next story she was, 5'4", and looked fully developed. So it was a fascinating paradox, and people often write, somehow there must be a story never told about how this poor child aged 7 years and no one seemed to notice. But we'll have to write that part some other day.
I think that story is a publisher realized that this guy's running around with an 11-year-old girl. I think that's the story.
I think that's right, Mark. I think there are those who follow it. I will say I do get comments from people insisting to me that Kitten's really 11 and that my story won't be that good, but even I really couldn't come up.
There you go. Kitten's actually 11, so your story sucks.
They haven't even read it yet.
The whole 80 pages is devoid of value because of this. I want to meet the guy who argues that I want to live in a world where being upset over the age of Kitten is the biggest thing in my life.
It is a startling thing. We have a character in there called Icarian, son of Icarus. For anyone who ever read, I think it's Colossus Comics #1.
And by the way, show of hands.
Anybody? Well, good. Marty. Yes, Marty's been quite the critic. It's Marty who yells at me about Kitten. But on the back cover, the inside back cover said "Coming next issue" and had a drawing of this winged character that looked so cool. Icarion, son of Icarus. Sadly, there never was a next issue. So I decided that I was going to resurrect good old Icarion and stick him in my comic somewhere because I thought it deserved publication. I wonder if Barry and Sean will comment. When I called them up, told them I wanted to do this Golden Age team, they were probably really excited. We're going to do, famous characters, we'll do the Fighting Yank, and then I gave them this list of people that neither had ever heard of, but maybe they both can comment a little.
Well, for me, I guess comics for me started with the Image era. So this stuff is really not something I'm familiar with or had any particular passion for. So it was tough to get around. So what I did, like my favorite comic was Watchmen, and I think it's a very similar thing where they cobbled together a bunch of superheroes that weren't being used. And if I were to draw that book, and basically what I do is just imagine that this is someone's Watchmen, so it deserves the same amount of TLC. Even though Watchmen had Alan Moore, this book has Mark Waid, so...
Yeah, it was not the same.
Sorry, I'm just sitting here wondering if Airmail and Stampy ever abandoned their post.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
That book really pushed the envelope.
Terrible. We'll have to fit that in. We'll definitely have something. Say that.
You should talk about the heroes that didn't make the cut, because I'm very upset that the Bouncer is not in the book.
Oh boy. Okay, so we did choose, we looked at the Fighting Hobo, we had to pass on the Vagabond. We thought long and hard about the Vagabond. We thought about Driftwood Dave. There were actually 5 different homeless characters. Apparently in the 1940s, there were thousands of readers reading about homeless characters and their adventures. In fact, where is Kevin? Kevin, are you here? There he is. The Fighting Hobo's name was Butch Brogan. That is Kevin Brogan of the Hero Initiative. So in our comic, the character is going to be named Kevin Butch Brogan. So the actual battling hobo is in the room. Thank you. And we thank him for signing a release to use his name. Thank you, Kevin. There are a number of characters I wanted to use. I've been sticking them in all these one-page origins. So if you look at the comic that Mark did, he's doing the Bill of Rights and the National Anthem. And then I have them attacking the Jester and Satana. Satana's from Moon Girl. So I tried to figure out, Marty, how to fit everybody in somewhere. But it turns out, in the golden age of comics, there were hundreds of publishers. Many of them came and went. Many of them would have the same cover and different interiors. One comic I came across used the same cover twice in 5 issues. So I don't know what the fans were thinking when they bought that. I've had to have a number of arguments as to whether I'm talking about V-Man, Captain V, or Captain Victory, as 2 of them are wearing the exact same costume, except one wears an eyelet and the other doesn't. The exact same costume. The other funny thing is, the names, so many of the names we know today were in the 40s. Wonder Man, The Vision, you know, Catman was a villain in the DC Comics, but was a character there. The Mad Hatter is another Batman villain, I believe. Sadly, the Green Turtle is yet to show up in the modern era, but we're hoping maybe in a Fables or something they'll have a Green Turtle story or something.
Who did you have to pass on? You had to pass on the Bouncer?
We passed on the Bouncer.
His superpower was a toga
Yeah, see,
that allowed him to bounce.
we were really sad about that.
It was actually Antaeus, the Bouncer.
It was, yes. We passed on the Owl, who I didn't want to use. Interesting, there was a hero, anybody ever hear of K the Unknown? There was a hero called, of course, Marty. There was a hero called K
He wore
the
boxing gloves.
K the Unknown wore boxing gloves. Apparently the publisher decided this character stinks because the very next issue, the person who was K the Unknown became the Owl, and then had months of adventures, and never referred again to the fact that they were K the Unknown. We're on Kickstarter, and we're just a couple $1,000s away. We want to bring back a different K the Unknown. We've got an origin story and want to have that. So please help us bring back K the Unknown. Marty, anybody else you can think of we really passed on that we wanted to have?
Rockman.
We didn't use
Ajax. Ajax.
We didn't use any of the spacefaring folks.
You passed up all the insects.
I did.
Yellow Jacket.
Yeah. Well,
The Fighting
stories to
Swarm.
be told later?
say again?
Are those stories to be told later?
I hope so. So if you read this book, The Liberty Brigade, this is our little prequel, but if you read the graphic novel, something I'm really proud of is one of the characters says something and talks about 6 or 7 other teams and says, well, we had the Women of America, the WOA, defending the home front. Roosevelt's Raiders were fighting in the east. The Axis Smashers were in the west, and the Freedom Fighters were at the ports. poor Barry Kitson has to draw all of those super teams in giant splash pages, so thank you, Barry. I do hope people will want to see some of those adventures because we were really thoughtful, or we tried to be, about who would be in some of those teams. So we have the Boy King and his giant, if people know the Boy King when the Nazis invaded his little country. We have permission from the owners of the Green Llama to do a little Green Llama story, but the Green Llama will only be if he appears in 3 pages.
Right. I love the fact that someone out there not only owns the character Green Llama, but is protective of him. In case that movie deal comes through.
Can I mention my favorite that got left out? Microface.
Microface is the best.
Isn't he?
He's the
He
best.
has like the little, like his mouth is like one of those things in a urinal. Like a robot through it and stuff.
Well, I want you to know.
Also, there is nothing micro or face about him. That's right. Like the name is just randomly chosen. But it's awesome. He's got that, maybe the grill on the lips. And yeah.
Well, he may come back. So let me say this: we tried to do in these one-page origins to add a whole bunch of characters and use characters that might not be able to be in the book, but we wanted an appearance. To get to see Mark draw the Jester again, who looks just like the Jester who fought Daredevil in Marvel Comics, but predated him by 60 years. Was something that was really exciting to me. To see Satana with 1 N, unlike the one with 2, so to come back. To see Mark take, 4 lines of script for me and turn it into something incredible, really, to me, is very exciting to see these people come back to print. So I don't know, Mark, if you have a passion for any of them or how you think about them.
Well, I mean, I'd certainly had loved...
Microface.
Well, you know what, I'm waiting to see. I've not...
We'll circulate
Please,
next week. We'll circulate Microface.
But I think in my case with Bill of Rights and National Anthem, it's because those characters were actually Michael's. I mean, those were the ones that you brought specifically to this project, and I think that was the thing that I liked, that there was some fresh blood. It was like, no, we're not just stopping with exploring all these old characters. This is a world that can now be explored and fleshed out, and I like that aspect of it. And they're wonderful characters.
Thank you. So, your question?
Yeah, so you're already funded though, right? I mean, you said you're a couple short.
Oh, I'm working on my stretch goal. So yes, we're already funded. K the Unknown is a stretch goal.
Tell us about the stretch goal.
So before we do that, I will make a comment. One person commented, as soon as I started, you can go on Facebook and also to www.thelibertybrigade.com. And one of the people went there and said, I really want to see my all-time favorite hero, Mirror Man. Mirror Man basically traveled through mirrors and punched people, and then inexplicably later became kind of this mirror-like non-physical entity. So I said, okay, fine. And I later told the person he's going to be, beaten up somewhere, but he is in the story, and so he's very excited. One other one that I do want to comment is Tnt Todd. For, I believe, 19 issues, Tnt Todd was a federal agent and always referred to as Todd. For the last 2 issues, he became a superhero. Oddly enough, in all those issues, we never learned if Todd is his first or last name. Everybody just said, Todd, do this, and Todd, do that, Agent Todd. So we never learned, but we wanted to fit them all in. So we are on Kickstarter now. We've got an 80-page story, plus at least 20 of these one-page origins by all kinds of artists. We've got some pin-ups and a few other things that are going in there. We were very fortunate to get funded on day 1. But again, it's poor guys like Barry who have to, I'm like, hey Barry, how would you like to do a cover for me? And Barry says, oh great, that'd be great. I'm like, excellent. I would like 11 characters and 12 headshots. And by the way, a few of these characters, only their head was shown on the cover of the 1940s, so you'll need to come up with more. So I don't know, Barry, how did you think about drawing that?
I'm perfectly happy to draw from heads. Making up costumes is fun.
I have a legitimate question. when you are faced with a challenge, how many, there are 11 guys in this cover, right? In the,
Possibly
or 12.
more.
Possibly more.
In the main shot. Like, as an artist, how do you see that? How do you break that down? How do you make that work? On that cover right there, like where did you start? Or, I mean, how do you even start with something like that?
Well, as with most things, I start with a very small thumbnail.
Okay.
Because that way, I can see the whole thing.
Right.
With it and kind of start with a design and work from that. So, probably in this one, there's basically, if you look carefully at it, there's a spiral in there of characters.
Oh, okay. Oh.
If you kind of you try and find a path to take your eye from one to another. And so I come up with a design that I like, and I send it to Michael, and Michael says, "Can you move those characters from the back to the front, because they're my favourites."
I do say things like that.
And so then yes, I just start again and go, oh, well, the eye's never going to follow me around this, but if Finn's happy, I'll just do it.
The Hobo has a question.
Yes, Mr. Hobo.
So to Mark's question, what was the first character you drew to get the spiral going? I mean, how do you start that?
I wish I could remember.
The one with the hat.
I know I wanted, so I love Sean's piece, and Sean's piece is fabulous, and I adore it. The only question that I would have raised is Mr. Freedom is front and center, and if you read the story, Mr. Freedom is my Golden Age villain who's got a pardon to fight the Nazis. So I thought, well, I like on another cover to have the two characters that I created a little more central, but I love both of them. They're so dynamic. So I know on this one I had told Barry I wanted the Bill of Rights and Anthem to be a little more central.
You did. I actually did another cover as well, which Michael asked me to do something along the same lines as Sean did. But Sean's was, it's just such a perfect cover. It pretty much came out looking exactly like Sean's. And I also put Mr. Freedom in the centre because Sean had done it and it looked so good. And then Michael pointed out that we were both being completely uncooperative by doing that.
Artists never listen to the writer, especially when he's a novice. I said, if I was Mark Waid, you would have done what I wanted.
Not Barry, but...
So Golden Age comics have a very specific tone to them and a certain way that they're written. Did you mimic that tone, or is this kind of like a cynical view of what it would have been in the 40s?
So absolutely not a cynical view. No, I wanted to, and Mark should comment as well, and everybody else who's read my script, I wanted to try to make the language a little more sophisticated, but not have that sense of cynicism and irony. I really wanted them to be shining characters. I wanted there, and if you read it, to have romance in there, to have characters who cared about each other, to have Catman and Kitten be in a relationship, to have Bill and Anthem be dating, to have, later you'll find Airboy and Valkyrie, you'll find others like that I wanted to, and some of those stories started in the 40s.
Right.
So maybe, I don't know, Mark, if you want to comment.
Well, just that, I mean, I think that one of the things that drew me to the project is that it was earnest. It's very easy to write cynical. It's very easy to write a lampoon of that stuff. That's easy. Writing it earnestly is harder, but it's of the tone. But one of the hallmarks of Golden Age superhero comics is that they were super racist. They really were. And so, obviously when we say it's of the tone, not completely, no. Yeah.
Sure. You know what, that's a great point, Mark. Let me comment on that. I deliberately wanted some diversity in this book.
Right.
So in the book, playing a great role is a character named Ace Harlem. There was an African-American journalist in the city of Philadelphia in the 40s. He was unhappy that all of the characters were white and thought, I would like there to be some African-American heroes. So he created a comic called All Negro Comics #1. It was a very interesting comic. He wanted to do All Negro Comics #2, and no one would sell him any ink. Today, it's really unknown. Today, actually, whether that was racism or they didn't want competitors, but I wanted to use Ace Harlem in the book. That was very important to me. I wanted the Green Turtle, who is Chinese. That was important to me. A couple of the white heroes had, kind of racist helpers. Rufus the butler. We have Rufus the butler, but that's a facade because he's actually a technological genius in our comics. So I did make some minor changes where I wanted it to update who those characters were, get away from that kind of the racist tone that was there for them in the 40s, and I wanted them to shine again. I wanted this book to have some really interesting characters like that, so I hope people will react well to it. That's why the Green Turtle is on the team. I looked really hard when I found this Chinese character and saw that his face was never allowed in the interiors. I was adamant that wasn't going to happen. I wanted a Native American character, and there's an aviator who's a Native American character, Tommy Tomahawk, and he runs around with a...
Nothing racist about that.
He runs around with a war bonnet all the time.